Hello, Tony here again from Homa. Today we're going to look at retrofitting Homa PMR5 relay where the mini cast is in this control. All right, one of the first things we're going to do is we're going to locate the mini cast in the control panel, and we're going to pull it from its socket. And we'll take a look that we have a number of pins here on the mini cast, and if you look at the Homa, it's a direct replacement into that socket. We have the same number of pins, the same slots for it to go into, and it fits perfectly in the existing socket, so there's no need to replace the existing socket. So now we're going to look to make sure we have the correct power going to the PMR5, because we need 120 volts to operate this. So the mini cast operated in two different ways. You can put 120 volts to it or 24 volts AC or DC to it to operate. So we have to look and see how were they powering up the mini cast. It's pretty simple. You look at your socket. And on the back side of the socket, there's a series of numbers. And I'm going to look for pin number 2. If pin number 2 is being used, they're bringing 24 volts to power up the mini cast. In this case, you can see I have a wire going to pin number 2. So knowing that I have to bring 120 volts for the PMR5, I have to do some wiring changes here to get that. It's pretty simple. What I need to do is remove the wire from pin number 2, remove the other end from the control transformer from the 24 volt feed to the 120 volt feed of that control transformer. I'm going to take that wire and bring it up to pin number 6, because I know that's the pin number that I have to bring the 120 feed to. I bring that up. And then I need to bring the neutral side of that 120 from the control transformer and bring that to pin 10 on the socket. So again, 120 off the feed, 120 side of the feed from the control transformer up to pin 6. From the other side of the 120, the neutral side, I bring a wire up to pin 10. All right, now we have power going to the PMR5. So the 120's there, we're all set up. Now we have to make sure that we're landing our thermals and our moisture on the right pins on the socket, because on the mini cast they only bring 2 wires from the terminal board up to the socket to operate the mini cast. We need to bring up 4 wires from the terminal board up to the socket so we can monitor both thermals and leakage. So to do that, we take our cable, this is our control cable, and we see we have 2 T's, we have an S1, we have an S2, and we have a ground wire. So we have a total of 5 wires that we're going to be connecting to our terminal board. The first 2 we're going to do, and it's really easy, are our T's, and those are our thermals. Those wires are already run up to the socket, to pin 5 and pin 7, which were the same 2 pins that we were landing the mini cast to. So we don't have to change those 2. So we'll take our 2 thermals, and we'll bring those over to T1 and T2. And we'll install those wires. And so those 2 are going up, and those are our thermals. The next 2 we're going to work with is S1 and S2. Those are our leakage sensors. Those will go on the next 2 terminals. So those are connected there. But if you notice, there's no wires going from the other side of that terminal up to the pins yet. We have to add those wires to it. So S1, we're going to take a wire And we're going to bring S1 up to pin 2. If you remember, that's where we took our 24 volts from. We no longer have 24 volts, but we're going to utilize pin 2 to operate our leakage on the PMR5. Loosen this up. And this is going to go to pin 2. So again, S1, wire coming off the other side of the terminal, goes up to pin 2. S2 needs to go to pin 5 from S2. So we'll put pin 5 on first, I think. And sometimes you can just put the two wires together. Makes it a little easier than trying to hold them both separately in there. All right, and then I'm going to bring the other side of that wire down to S2 here. All right, the only other item I have now that I have S2 going to pin 5, S1 going to pin 2, T1, T2 going to pin 5 and pin 7 is to hook up the ground off of my control cable. Now we have our ground set up. The only other wire I need to add, I have to bring a ground wire in, and that ground wire comes in from pin number 5 on the socket down to the ground on the terminal board. We'll do that. The wire that's in pin 5 now stays there. We just add a ground to that. Okay. The only other thing that we would do here is if I had an S3 and an S4, which would be another set of leakage sensors, the S3 would go on the same socket as the S1, and the S4 would go on the same socket as the S2. And those would still go to those two pins I have up there. That's the only other two wires that you would have to do. But now you have completed rewiring from a mini CAS to using a PMR5. All right, so we want to take a look at one more thing because we went through S1s and S2s. There is one other option out there that you could see, and it's a little different wiring. Here's another control cable, and if you look at the two control cables, they both have T's. Okay, those are our thermals. They both have S's. They both have an S1. This one had an S2, but this has an S5. So if you have that S1, S5, I'll show you how that gets wired in at this time. I'm going to take S1 and S5, and those both now are going to go under the next terminal. We're putting those together here. So those are both to that terminal. Those both go up to pin 2. That's the only other two wires that you would have to do. But now you have completed rewiring from a mini CAS to using a PMR5.